Hello again, Struckweb. Today I'm bringing you another Borderlands 3 build, and this one is for Amara, the Siren. I've decided to call it a Slamboyant build because it's using Phaseslam weapon damage, and I couldn't think of a better word, but you can call it whatever you want. Basically it's a Phaseslam weapon damage build with a few words. The key things about this build would be we are stacking elemental damage and shock damage, and we're also stacking splash damage and a lot of it. And we are using the transformer shield to heal ourselves while dealing that splash shock damage to enemies around us or shooting in our feet. Of course I experimented with other shields, I experimented with different weapons, and I'm gonna tell you more about some of my preferred weapon bases and class mods, etc. All of that in the gear section. And before that, in the skill points segment, I'm gonna show you what I've decided to pick when it comes to synergizing this build the way it is now. For decent splash damage, for decent elemental and shock damage, and for a nice amount of lifesteal when we shoot enemies. This build definitely has the damage going on and some survivability, but I've had difficulties at certain content, such as I've been able to kill Votan, who is the final boss of the Mariwan takedown, but I was in a team with two other Amaras, I think a Phase Grasp and a Phase Cast, and it was I think Mayhem 3, something like that. So skills wise, this build is using some points here on this side, together with maxing out all the way to get to Fixed of the Elements. There are some nice synergies that you would see, and I was actually, when recording the gameplay footage, I had 1 point here, which is really a waste of a point, so I just decided to spend it here, but you can spend it maybe on this place or on this place, whichever you think would be more useful for you. I'm not a big fan of handling and accuracy for this build because we're doing mostly splash damage, but it's always nice to have it. It's always nice to have it, but someone else might prefer some of the other things. And Infusion used to lose me some DPS. I've not tested it recently, but many people have been reporting that as well, that this is glitched and you're kind of losing DPS when speccing into Infusion. That's why I decided to not go that route. So let's just quickly talk about some of the things. This is great status effect damage, status effect duration, and action skill status effect damage increased. Then we have this elemental damage, 30% shock damage, 20, which means 50% shock damage. And here is a synergy. I'm using shock damage to heal myself by using this shield, the transformer. You would see me experimenting with shields like this one, and I'm gonna talk more about the gear later on. But this heals us, and if I'm using Trevonator or Tigg's boom, I can heal myself by shooting the enemy up close or by shooting in my feet with shock damage. Tigg's boom is shock damage shotgun as well. The problem is I lost mine. Last night I was streaming with a viewer and he was hosting, and then he left without me leaving before him. This wrote back my save data, and I had picked up the Tig's boom from my warehouse, and it only rolls back the character data, so the Tig's boom is now lost forever, and I'm gonna have to farm a new one from the new raid dungeon. In the meantime, 1 point in deep well, pretty nice extra magazine size. It's nice. You may not want it, then that means you might want to spend some points here or in those two skills. But you need all those points I spent here to unlock Forceful Expression. Then Indiscriminate is quite nice. You can ricochet bullets, and it's pretty nice, pretty decent to have it. You don't have to have a Phase Grasp or a Stillness of Mind, but for Phase Grasp and Stillness of Mind, this is kind of increased damage and chance. But for now, this is still good enough for me. Then Sustainment. Amara gains lifesteal whenever she deals elemental damage. This is our main source of healing for HP. So the Trevonator, Tig's boom, or any other shock splash damage would heal our shields, and when we're doing damage to ourselves, we're also healing ourselves with Sustainment. And the thing is, we can do that while hitting enemies up close, so we're healing shields and HP. And if you're Shooting at enemies, you're constantly healing 20% of the damage to your HP, so that's not bad at all. Because this is not a melee build, even though it's a Phaseslam build, it's not a melee build, so we don't have the option to use Knife Drain to heal ourselves. So on my mod I've picked up 4 points of arms deal, but you can see I've added 5 points here. This is for extra splash damage and splash damage reduction. It's pretty nice, because things like Trevonator, Tigg's Boom, Flakker and weapons I like to use normally are splash damage. And a lot of enemies that are troublesome are splash damage enemies, so 54% splash damage reduction when this is at level 9 is nice. You probably might not be able to get it to level 9 and maybe get it to level 7 or 8. And then you can use personal space as well on a mod. It's good when you're up close. So if you play it like a berserker kind of rushing up close and personal with the enemy and using a splash damage shock weapon like the Trevonator, this would be beneficial. You can try and find a mod with maybe 4 or 5 points into this one if you can't find one with many points into arms deal. It's still good, it's still gonna be nice damage boost, so keep it in mind. It might actually even be better if you find a mod with 5 points into personal space or 3 points into personal space. And this works on any weapon shot, so even if you're doing a melee build, it doesn't say gun damage, it says weapon shots damage. So even weapons like the face puncher that scales off of melee would work. But that's for another build, melee build, which I'll be doing next week. Then this is for HP and elemental damage reduction of what you're attuned to. In my case it's mostly shock, sometimes I would switch the element, but it's mostly shock that I'm attuned to, so less damage reduction from that element, combining it with that splash damage reduction, you have some nice damage reduction there. You might want to try and experiment without putting those points, that way when you're doing shock damage to yourself you wouldn't be having that much damage reduction, which would heal your shields for more. But I like it that way. And that gives us enough points to get Guardian Angel, which is a great skill, a must have for the way I play the build. That's it for the skill points. Next off we're gonna show you some of the gear choices that I prefer to take. And as for the attunements, I prefer this one, but you can always switch around to glamour or maybe even allure. Whichever you prefer. My preferred choice is revelation, and since we have a lot of points here, you can even switch to Phase Grasp when it's needed. But if you plan on switching between Phase Grasp and Phaseslam, you probably might want to put 1 point in Dread instead of here. Gear wise, there are certain things you definitely need to look out for, and that's gear that gives you, after using Phaseslam, weapon damage is increased by 300% for a short time. This is the most you can get for an after using a skill. So even face cast is 250% extra weapon damage, and things like on action skill end would not give you that much. See, this is action skill end, as splash damage is increased by 125%, but this gives you all sorts of weapon damage. Although this one, splash damage is increased, would increase the damage of the action skill itself, but I doubt you would be able to get the cooldown as low to be able to benefit from this extra increase. I mean, there are probably things stacking something like this on action skill and cooldown reduction, and then maybe getting some cooldown reduction on the relic that you're using, and probably if there's any other ways to get the cooldown down, probably it would be possible, but I'd suggest just going for weapons like this. I also have some Flakkers with this bonus, which I switched to, a normal bullets one, a radiation one, but try to get something like that that gives you Phaseslam weapon damage increase. You can quickly just switch to the weapon, do the Phaseslam, and then switch to another one. I can't do it right now because it's in cooldown, so I'm just gonna quickly wait. Look at the damage. It's actually, let's switch to semi-auto. So 2783 with extra 391 shock. Let's do it that way. See, 11,000 with 1603 shock, so definitely increased damage. Definitely increased damage and definitely nice stuff going on. Quick note about the grenades I like to use a hex, and the best one would be the recurring. In this case I was using a Murphtacular, which is the second best I guess, because just one less explosion, but in the end it's almost the same. So Murphtacular or recurring hex, preferably you can get it with a good anointment. The one I'm using doesn't have one, so you can get some extra damage squeezed out from some of those new anointments that give you extra action, skill and weapon and grenade damage after throwing a grenade for a few seconds. Alternative choices would be maybe a Stormfront or a Quasar grenade. As long as it's shock, it would be able to heal you while you're using the Transformer shield. If you're not using the Transformer and go for a different approach and focus on the damage aspect of the build, not on the self heal and self shield heal, then maybe using a different element grenade would work too. And when it comes to the Quas mod, I was using this one with 4 points into arms deal, 1 into personal space. It's a purple mod, and that's because I can't find legendary mods that give me arms deal or arms deal and personal space altogether. You can see it's wasted because it's only giving me Atwas weapon damage and Torgue weapon reload speed. You can try and use a breaker mod or maybe something like this: 3 points arms deal, 1 personal space, even 1 point samsara with skill cooldown rate. And skill cooldown rate would be great because you can keep getting that extra 300% weapon damage. And maybe this one, reload speed, cooldown rate, but this one is only 1 point arms deal, 3 personal space. So that typical brawler mod in the blue rarity is pretty nice. You can try and maybe use something like the breaker mod, the melee focused mod. It's not that bad, because if you find one with 4 or 5 points into personal space, you're gonna benefit from that damage reduction the closer you are to an enemy, and you can get some nice bonuses on it with that personal space, but no arms deal. So the way I play it, I need that arms deal, and that's why I decided to not go for something like this. But this is an alternative choice that you can make. I don't know about the new mods, but they're supposedly new mods. Hopefully one of the new legendary mods gives us points into arms deal. But for now, purple is the way I run with this. For bases I like Nighthawk in Flakker. The boring gun seems to work well every now and then. Trevonator, a must have if you want to be healing, it's very nice. Another weapons you would see me experimenting with during this gameplay footage of the build video would be the ogre. I was experimenting with an ogre. I was experimenting with Kill-O-Wisp, but the skins are kind of glitched now. Okay, let's show it properly. So I was experimenting with Kill-O-Wisp, and again the skills are glitched, the skins. The Flakker I was using as well. Another thing I prepared to use was the Dastardly Head Explosion, but I didn't use it, so I can quickly show you on Jack. I used the Hellfire, which drops from the Jabber Mongwai. You might want to look that up. And then Tankman's Shield. So that's the weapons I used for this demo. I also used the boring gun. So this is Kill-O-Wisp, which I used during the first part. So look at, see, it's nice damage. I think it's currently not benefiting from that increased damage. So let's do it like this. See how much damage we can get with the 300%. Okay, it's still 28k. Interesting. So maybe that 300% stays for long enough to have the skill up all the time. And you can see now I can heal myself by doing that damage. Oh, that's the cryo, never mind. So switching to shock. So you see the Trevonator, good damage even from afar, but the closer we get, the more the damage. Of course we need this. Just showing some of the damage you can get with those weapons, the way I've set them up with the current items I'm wearing. Since I'm using elemental projectile, mind you, my damage is increased when I'm affected by this shock, or whether it's fire, whatever element I'm affected by increases my damage from that element by 90%. And this is great. The one I've got gives me shotgun damage and shock damage, which is perfect for a Trevonator, it's perfect for a Kill-O-Wisp, it's perfect for Tigg's Boom. Quickly I'm gonna show you the Dastardly Head Explosion. which is another gun I think you might want to experiment with for long range targets if you can't reach them easily. The Hornet is also a nice weapon to use if you want to deal with armored enemies, always a good choice. Where did it go? The Cutsman is also a very good weapon to use. A Cutsman with shock would be great for this build. So as I was saying, I wanna check the head explosion for you guys. So you see 26k, this can do a lot of damage with the right setup. Definitely a good gun, and it has good optics, but the further away I get, the less the damage would be. So let's get that Phaseslam, let's get that elemental projector, and then 25k. 26k, yeah, not bad. There's many good weapon bases like Wushan Skull or some other ones that you might be liking, but main thing is Packing Devastator is also good. Main thing is pick the best base and try to get this bonus on one of the weapons, and you can just switch to that weapon, use Phaseslam, and then keep using another one. It would be actually nice if the other one is maybe something that has to deal with terror, where reloading, or maybe some extra damage while terrified or whatever, or maybe consecutive hits increase the damage, such as this one. So if I were to do this one and then switch on a Flakker for the Phaseslam, that's gonna be a nice combo. So yeah, I'm just gonna quickly wait a bit, just shock myself. Now I'm gonna wait for the cooldown. I'm gonna use the Flakker, and then with the Nighthawking, each consecutive hit would be increasing the damage. And I think this resets when we reload. See, it keeps growing as we reload. It resets. So this is nice for magazine size over 25-30 weapons, and the bigger the magazine size, the better this would be. So something like a Shreddy Fire or a Phaser or a Wushan Skull would be nice with this anointment. So main thing is there's many new anointments. You might want to try them out and see if they're worth it. And now I'm gonna show you some more gameplay footage to top it off. Gameplay wise, the build is not difficult to play at all. You basically switch to a weapon that gives you the 300% weapon damage after Phaseslam, and then you start using either that weapon if it's a good base, or another weapon if it's not that good of a base. Ideally you would probably do the Phaseslam for the 300% weapon damage, and then switch to a mode that maybe gives you extra damage based on consecutive hits. And maybe you would have some grenades that give you extra weapon damage after throwing a grenade, so you might want to throw a grenade shortly after doing the Phaseslam to kind of stack that 30% with the 300%. You can see me trying different weapons, like now I'm trying the Hellfire, and then later you would see me trying some other stuff, so I'm gonna be mentioning all of those. In the gear section you should be able to see what those weapons cards are, to get a few of the element and anointments of those weapons. Some of them I would actually show while you're watching this gameplay footage. At the end of this video you would be seeing some of them, how I'm swapping to them, so you could see the weapon cards. This is the Tanksman shield. This one actually drops from Captain Throne in Athena's. I think it only drops on Mayhem 4, that's where I got it. It's not perfect maybe for this build, but it is fine. This one has no element, so you can see it's barely doing any damage to this armored enemy. Even to the flesh state it's not doing that much. After doing a Phaseslam maybe I can get the crits to 10-14,000, so it's not so bad. But yeah, definitely not the best for this build, because we are stacking splash damage and we're stacking elemental, not normal bullets damage. So yeah, now I'm switching to the Ogre. This one again non-elemental, but it is splash damage, and we still do that extra shock with any hit regardless of what weapon we have. So a bit more with the Ogre. If you hear, I'm just doing Phaseslam while wearing the Ogre, so that doesn't mean I'm getting the 300% weapon damage. So this is me without the 300% weapon damage on Phaseslam using the Ogre. It's not a bad weapon. If you keep your distance from the enemies, it would be nice, but you can see with the Trevonator I don't have to keep my distance. That means I'm benefiting from personal space bonus damage. And now a bit of Nighthawking. Of course, the Nighthawking is amazing, even though it's not splash damage. During the night time, you know, it deals incendiary instead of cold. So yeah, it still can freeze the enemies, even though it deals incendiary during the night time. And now is the boring gun. The boring gun, you gotta be careful when you use it, cause you don't have immunity to cold or to corrosive. I have one with cold and one with corrosive. I decided to use the corrosive one here. This one gives me 125% splash damage on after a Phaseslam, after using an action skill. But I normally do the 300% weapon damage with the Nighthawking, then switch to the boring gun. Now the Flakker. I just used that 300% weapon damage, so you see the Flakker, our good old friend, regardless on what build we use it. This one is with incendiary, so it's particularly good against flesh enemies like the ones here. Later on you would see me attacking with the Flakker enemy with armor, and I think it wasn't me that dealt that huge spike of damage. It might have been my teammate. So in a bit it should be somewhere here on the left where there's a Ceratops or something. So I'm using the Flakker again, and it should be in the next cutout where we see that Ceratops getting melted, and I'm assuming it wasn't me, but my Flakker might have helped even though it's fire. I did have that bonus damage on it, so that should be the clip I was talking about. So here on the left side, kill this Grak, and then another one. And now someone has armor here, but they got melted, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't me. And now back to some boring gun. And now you see a Dominator. So I'm starting off with the boring gun, I die, then I get rest by what's its name, by Guardian Angel. Or maybe that wasn't on this one. Yeah, I don't die, never mind. And then this one, I'm only using the Trevonator here. Up close, you see I keep healing and I keep getting my shield regained. It died in seconds, but unfortunately it was the others attacking as well, so I couldn't say well. And this is where I would die while using the boring gun, and I would switch to my Trevonator. Thankfully I have Guardian Angel to rest me. This is the final boss of this slaughter. So see, I die and immediately Guardian Angel every 2 minutes. Then I say fuck it, let's use the Trevonator up close. And you see 14k, 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 it shoots 3 projectiles at a time. So that's actually almost 45k. 43k, not bad, 42k, not bad. So yeah, this died quickly, but it was 3 of us and 3 Amaras, mind you, so probably if I was so it would have taken me a bit longer. So thanks again everyone for watching the video. If you've enjoyed it, you can subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to get notified when I upload future content for Borderlands 3 or other Wooter games like Torchlight Frontiers, Warhammer Chaos Bane, or maybe some new ones coming in the future. If you like the video, you can also let me know by hitting the like button, and the same goes if you didn't like it by hitting the dislike button, and feel free to let me know in the comment section why you like it or not. And then keep it cool guys, until next time, and see you around. Goodbye.